6, वो synergies आ जाती हैं, entrepreneurship आ जाती है, and people try to make 2 + 2 is equal to 5 or 6. That is how the world functions. Somehow, since most of our organizations are in the public sector, somehow the private sector has not been involved in a lot of activities. The government is doing a lot of things which is actually not their business, frankly. It is not the business of the government to do business. Frankly, ये मेरा एक व्यू है कि गवर्नमेंट का कोई काम नहीं है बिजनेस के साथ. Unfortunately, since the sector has been developed that way, or there are certain sector where the government has to step in, so then they start fiddling in economics and they start fiddling in financial affairs. But even if they do, still they have to keep in mind that somebody has to pay for it, and somebody has to, look at things in a manner, in an economic manner, in a financial manner, where there is a return on the investment, where there is a return on the equity that you've put in. There should be the money that you put in, there should be a return on it. And frankly, this simple rule of economics is followed all over the world. In fact, I don't want to go into details, there was this term known as public administration. People turned it into public management. This is not long ago, this is just 15-20 years ago. A public management concept where then they said, okay, you provide the service to the people, but somebody has to pay for it. So you look at the costs. And if the costs, the revenues that are coming in from that service, or the benefits that are accruing because of that service, and not only the financials, but the economic and the social benefits that are accruing because of a certain project, you go ahead to do it. In this respect, let me, on the transport sector, for example, this Orange Line. The Orange Line, when you look at the economics, frankly, the revenues that are generated from the sale of passenger tickets will never make that project viable. About $1.6–1.7 billion has been spent on that project. But the tickets, you must be reading in the newspaper. Sometimes, they put it on kilometerage, or sometimes they give it a flat rate, whatever the return is, it will never equal that. The return on that investment will never come within the next 10, 15, 20 years. So then what you do is that you look at what benefits it is giving, what economic benefits it is giving to the society, what economic benefits are being derived by the city of Lahore, what economic benefits are being derived in the form of externalities. Look at the environment, look at the pollutions, look at all these things. Then you say, okay, if financially it is not viable, economically it is viable, and socially it is required for the city. Hota kya hai ki because of this one service, a lot of rickshaws, a lot of buses, a lot of time wasting transport is taken out of the roads. So that also has an effect. That has an financial effect. It has an economic effect. Those are calculated, and then you say, okay, this is now a viable project. The city of Lahore needs it. But then when you look at the city of Lahore, it is not one line that is required. Now they're talking of 4, 5, 6 more such lines. Only then through railway economics, the topic jo main baat kar raha hu, through economies of scale, when the volumes are so much, then the whole thing becomes, even at times, it financially and economically, it becomes very viable. And the city just can't do without it. And in most cities of the world, these mass transit system on rails is there. The thumb rule, as maybe I said this earlier also, that the thumb rule is that any city with 1 million population should have a rail-based mass transit system. But now, to make it financially viable, economically viable, socially viable, that calculation has to be done. Even in the orange line, for example, they can get other revenues. There are other avenues of collecting revenues. वो क्या है? Publicity के through, stations के ऊपर publicity, selling stations out, other having some food outlets, some shops out there, whatever. So that this goes on everywhere in the world. Then you can even do the branding on the trains. You can do branding on the buses. ये होता है. So there are 101 areas where revenues can be generated on different things. That is where that financial, in the gap between the revenues and the expenditures, if the revenues are less and the expenditure is more, that gap that is known as financial viability gap, that has to be filled. That 2 + 2 should make 4 somehow. So you start looking at other things. You see, there are in Trans-Peshawar, this BRT, they're looking at sort of branding railway stations, branding the buses, letting out the land for use of advertisements, letting out land for commercial use, if there is land available, or railway stations where the both land hoti. So this is how you then make money, and this is how you make economic sense of railways. And now all this I'm talking of the mass transit system, but when we talk of Pakistan Railways, it can be the operation itself can be financially and economically viable. Maybe, of course, there are 101 other areas where you can make money. Now, one of the projects that is going on where they're trying to sort of get some money from private investment is through laying of an optic fiber along the railway track. So good enough. Why not? And then we are going to talk of traffic. The entire transport system, entire transportation that you will be studying for this MS degree in transport system engineering, it depends, the transportation depends on traffic. If the traffic is there, now traffic is something which you need to understand, ये दो चीजों को represent करता है. एक passenger को on one side और दूसरी side पे freight. So it is traffic means freight and goods, saman, and on the other side passengers. Now in passengers there are different types of passengers. What kind of, is it mass transit? Is it local urban traffic? Is it suburban traffic? Is it intercity traffic? Is it sort of long distance traffic? Is it overnight traffic? Is it, what kind of passenger traffic is there? To go for different concepts, and then we look at the railways from this point of view. And this kind of traffic, when you analyze this, is sort of, you can duplicate it, replicate it on the airlines. You can same is applicable for the shipping, same is applicable for roads. So चीज वही है, but transport के साथ traffic बड़ा जरूरी. Now traffic then has to be, at times has to be forecasted. You can't say that, okay, let me have a road from here to say let us connect Islamabad to say Muzaffarabad. I want a sort of a motorway, 6-lane motorway from Islamabad to Muzaffarabad in Kashmir. Very good. Why not? You should have it. But then the basic thing is the traffic there? Does that investment of a 6-lane highway, of a 6-lane motorway, will it be able to generate enough traffic? The volumes of traffic will be such that tomorrow it will give you a return. There'll be passengers moving, there'll be passenger vehicles moving, like cars and buses and different kinds of things moving on that road, and then there will be trucks, there will be goods and freight moving. And is that volume there? So what traffic forecasting, that has to be forecasted. Any kind of sort of a transport project will have to go through a traffic forecast first. When the CPEC started, the Chinese and Pakistanis, we got together and a full, complete monographic transport study was done on China-Pakistan economic corridor. How will things move from Xinjiang in China, Western China? How will this be connected to Pakistan? Where is the traffic? What kind of traffic will move, whether it is freight traffic or passenger traffic? Where are the industrial areas? Where are the agriculture areas? Where is the trade moving? How will it move? What volumes will move? And how it should be moved? And from which point to which point it will move? But then in traffic and transportation, you have these concept of a node. Node is a place where different kinds of traffic moves from different area, comes to one central place, and then it moves out to again to different areas. Usko node kehte hain. So these nodes were identified in Pakistan. These nodes were identified in Western China. That is how the CPEC study was done. And that after that study, of course, then it was decided that, okay, transport sector, whether it is roads or railways or shipping or Gwadar or Karachi or pipelines or whatever, maybe even these optic fibers, this sector is very, very important. And without this, the development of Pakistan and development of Western China cannot go ahead, and this connectivity cannot go ahead. So that survey has already been done. Usko kehte hain monographic traffic survey of these two of CPEC. So what I'm saying is, before you start a project, this traffic needs to be dealt, and you need to know what traffic is. So I've told you in simple words, traffic relates to passengers and freight and their movements. And movement can be on road, movement can be on trains. So that then are specialized fields. You look at train operations, you look at road operations, you look at shipping operations, you look at air operations. How is that then? तो ये CPEC में ये सारी चीजें हुई हैं. Airports कहाँ होने चाहिए? Ports, how are the ports going to be developed? That is why Gwadar port came up. And only because, not because somebody wanted it as a project, as a civil engineering project or a project which somebody had envisioned, but based on traffic, these projects have come in. So this was just an introduction. Now, as the topic says, railway economics and traffic issues. So we will talk of railway economics. And now the way I'm going to tell you is that this is the process and methodology. You can apply it to the road, you can apply it to the airlines, you can apply it to the other sectors also of transport. Now railways, when we talk of railways, as I keep saying, railways is nothing but how best the infrastructure and the rolling stock is utilized to give you speedy, safe, and efficient train operations. Railway means trains. Keep that in mind. Bagair train ke, this is the basic unit jo railway ka hai. Without the efficient use of these trains and without the efficient use of these assets for operating these trains, railways is frankly, without this, it's nothing. So it's all about trains. Now trains. There, as I said, two types. Basically, the bigger picture give you two types. One is the passenger services and one is the freight service. Now, what are passenger services? Passenger services are those trains which carry passengers. And what is the difference between a train and a bus and a wagon and a car? The difference is very simple, that a train will carry passengers in bulk. It will carry at least the number of passengers which are 30, 40, 35, 40 buses. One train will carry the equivalent of 30, 35 buses, if not more. So ye hai. So in one go, you can just carry so many people out between two destinations. Now train then services can be, it depends on the length of the train. That is a basic parameter. How long would you like a train to be? How many passengers would you like to carry in that train? You have 11 coaches, you have 10 coaches, you have 6 coaches, you have 18 coaches, you have 20 coaches, you have 25 coaches. Now that again is a traffic decisions which needs to be taken. And then of course it depends on your different parameters that you have. Locomotives kaun se hain, your track kaise hai, how is the signaling system, how is the safety system, sari cheezein. So then you decide on the length of the train. For example, from Peshawar to Rawalpindi to Lala Musa. Yeah, this is on the ML1 I'm talking, main line. The length of trains is restricted to 11 coaches. 11 coaches have to be attached to one locomotive, and the locomotive also cannot be, is normally not more than 2000 horsepower locomotive. So that means 3000 and 4000 horsepower locomotives normally do not run between Lala Musa, and Peshawar. So that means 3000, 4000 if they can't run. So you can't have a train whose length is more than 11 coaches. Secondly, 11 coaches has been the length of train between this section is limited to 11 coaches because this is a gradient section because of the degree of curves that is there on the track. The maximum is 6-degree curve, so you can't have a long length train and you can't have a then speed is also restricted. So these are factors that determine length. But then in passenger service, basically the parameter is the people. Logon ko le jana. So length of trains. Then beyond Lala Musa, since it is plain right up from Lala Musa to Gujarat to Gujranwala, from Lahore to Saiwal, Multan and onwards to Nawab Shah, Rodi, Sakkar and Aage Hyderabad and Kotri and then Karachi. It is all plain area. Generally, it is plain. So there, then the train length can be even 20 coaches. But normally, it is 17, 18 coaches. So ye fir wo farak aa jata hai. So there you can. But if you don't have the traffic, then why have 18 coaches on the train? And you can reduce them. But then again, when you look at the length of the coach of the train and the number of coaches, then it determines the traffic and it determines your revenue. So you have to make best use of whatever you have. Okay? Then passengers may, the demand for reduction of transit time between 2 points. This has always been an aim of humanity कि जी कम से कम time लगे. पैदल से from walking a donkey may be better. From donkey a horse is better, and then from a horse some mechanical transport is better. But how do you go there? There's a big demand for speed, and because of this demand for speed, now the trains have gone up to about 300 to 350 kilometers per hour, which is a very, very high speed, frankly, for inland transportation, for land transportation. And there are experiments being done for even 450 and 500 kilometers. So this will keep on going. Why? Because people want to move faster. The world is globalized, the world is shrinking, and people want to get connected quickly. And they want to not waste time on transportation, on transit time. So, jaldi jana chahte. So speed has always been an issue and speed will remain an issue. But then, of course, speed is just not saying that, okay, let us take it to 300. There's a huge cost behind this. And whenever all these words, then look at the economics of it, look at the financials of it. Kaise hoga? By just saying, okay, let's increase the speed to 160 kilometers per hour from the present Pakistan Railways speed 110. Let us go to 160. For that, you need billions and billions of dollars. तो ये ऐसे मुंह से निकाल देना कि जी ऐसे होना तो चाहिए बहुत सी जरूरी. So we have been sort of our government has this desire of running bullet trains for the past maybe now 25-30 years, but nothing has happened. So, but just by saying nahi hota. So you being sort of technical people, you being a sort of literate people and educated people and knowing about transportation, never say कि जी ये speed ज़्यादा कर देंगे. When you say speed ज़्यादा होनी चाहिए, look at all the technical parameters, only then say. Then in passengers, we have this the choice of passengers, the capacity or to pay of the passenger. So then we have these different classes of coaches. Normally, when you go out, generally there are 1 or 2 or 3 classes. One is the sort of sitting parlor car. Then you have, of course, the sleepers. And at times there are very few places where you have these luxury coaches. But generally in Pakistan, हमारे ये एक economy class, which is non-air conditioned, windows open. But that then, of course, there's a big demand for it. Why? Because the capacity to pay is not there. So economy class has to be there. Now this for us was an issue, especially when we were upgrading this ML1 project, upgradation project of ML1, where the speeds would go up to 160 kilometers per hour. Now for 160 kilometers, when you travel, you can't have an open coach with open windows and open doors. It has to be closed. So that means air conditioning by not by choice, but by default हमें करनी पड़ती थी. अब how do you fix the fare for that air conditioned class, and how do you accommodate the economy class people who already don't have that capacity to pay? ये एक issue आता है, and you have to think about it. And how low do you keep that fare so that the common man can be accommodated and the common man can afford it. Then we have these used to have first class sleeper coaches, non-air conditioned, but with sleeping accommodation. So I think they've been phased out slowly, gradually they finished. Then we have the lower air conditioned class. And lower air conditioned class, where the coaches are completely air conditioned, but the fares are less. The facilities are not that much. You have the 6 berthers facing each other, 6 people sitting, and the coach is open, but it is air conditioned. So ये है. Then there's another class जिसको कहते हैं air conditioned business, and that is where you have these 6 persons sitting with a small room, but bathrooms are on the sides. So 6 persons have an exclusive compartment to themselves. That is another, but you pay for it, of course. And then, of course, we have the air-conditioned sleeper class, where you have 4 people sitting, sleeping in one compartment, and you have an attached bath. And there are, of course, others where you have these two people can sleep in one compartment. They have their own bathroom, they have their own door, and they can, it is all privacy there. So ये चीजें हैं, but these are different classes. Then classes, of course, you have to pay for them. But ये class जो है, these classes, where on which trains they have to be put, where is it required? If you say, okay, let me have an air-conditioned class between Peshawar and Rawalpindi in a daytime, you will see that there are no passengers for this. Why? Because the cost is too much and there is no sort of demand for such travel at daytime between Peshawar and Rawalpindi. So then again, these things have to be seen. Where do you put these different kinds of coaches? Is the demand there? Woi traffic forecasting karni padti hai. You can't say, okay, this looks very good, this is very comfortable, let us have these coaches. They cost you a lot of money. Each coach will cost you maybe about 0.8 to $1 million. ये बड़ा महंगी चीज है. Then passengers में when you talk of passenger coaches, straight आपका tariff का ख्याल आता है. What will be the fare? How will this passenger afford? How much can he afford to pay me? If you have for sort of cosmetics, for For the press, for media, तो बड़ी अच्छा है यार, जबरदस्त 10-20 डब्बों की आप एयर कंडीशन क्लास ट्रेन चलाएं, यू विल फाइंड कि उसकी कोई लेने वाला टिकट नहीं है. तो देन उसका फेयर कितना होना चाहिए? नाउ इफ यू थिंक कि जी उसका फेयर हम कम करके भी चलाएंगे, तो यू विल सी दैट विद इन अ शॉर्ट टाइम यू विल गो इनटू ह्यूज डेफिसिट्स. और ये होता रहा है हमारे साथ. So these things, then fare of course is a very very important. Why? Because it hits the pocket of every passenger. तो वो different fare structures हैं. Generally जो रेलवे का है, the fares are normally telescopic. Telescopic का मतलब ये है कि the Pakistan Railways में especially they want to encourage long distance passengers. तो short distance के लिए किराया ज्यादा नजर आ रहा होगा. For the more kilometers you travel, farther you travel, then for that per kilometer किराया कम होता जाता है. तो ये एक telescopic fares है. Then do remember के अहम सबसे important parameter जो है for passenger trains is the passenger kilometer. How many kilometers is a passenger traveling? How to what length is the passenger going? If he is traveling, say from Karachi to Hyderabad, then you say, okay, this passenger is traveling for 180 kilometers. What will happen beyond Hyderabad, because the train is going to Peshawar from Karachi? So you don't want people to travel on short distances. So then a passenger going from, say, Karachi to Hyderabad, it is 180 kilometers. One passenger when he goes, that means 180 passenger kilometers. For the second passenger, another 180. So 180 multiplied by 2. For, let us say, a train carrying 1,000 passengers. So it is 180 multiplied by 1,000. You get 180,000 passenger kilometers. तो आपका जो perimeter है of looking at how many people are traveling and where they're traveling, that will give you the passenger kilometers. Normally for passenger services, passenger trains, if you look at go to the website of Pakistan Railways, वहाँ yearbook होगी, it will give you passenger kilometers. So whenever you want to judge railway system, passenger railway system, look at the passenger kilometers they are doing. The more passenger kilometers they are doing, the better that railway is. At one time, the Pakistan Railways जो हमारी है, we were carrying about 140 million people. 140 million people was more at that time. This is, I think, in the 70s. We were carrying 140 million people, which was more than the population of Pakistan at that time. But when you look at the passenger kilometers, today's passenger kilometers are much more, even although we are carrying 60 to 65,000 passengers. So what is happening is that each passenger who purchases a ticket is traveling on a longer length, and he's traveling further, which is the requirement of Pakistan Railways. You don't want these short hop passengers, because most of the trains are reserved, most of the trains are express trains, most of the trains are overnight trains. You don't want people from, say, a train going from Rawalpindi to Karachi. You don't want people going to Gujar Khan in a train. You don't want people going from Peshawar to Nowshera in a train which is going to Karachi. Let them go by bus or let them go wherever. So that is, then you see, this adds to passenger kilometers. What has happened historically in Pakistan Railways, that the average kilometer traveled by each passenger has increased dramatically. Frankly, it is a good increase. I always say that this is what should be happening. There is a demand in Pakistan for long distance travel. There's a demand for long distance rail travel. So our trains should be looking at that demand rather than running trains for short hops on branch lines or loss making trains. Once you start addressing this issue where there is a demand for long distance passenger trains, passenger travel, I personally feel these trains will be financially viable. Some of these trains, even running today, they are financially viable. Unka 2 + 2 does make 4. In fact, they at times makes 5. Some of them, but most of them, because they are not run to sort of, they're not run as express trains and not run as a long distance trains or short hops. यहाँ पे रोक दिया, पदीदन रोक दिया, ये खानपुर रोक दिया, फलानी जगह, हर जगह कोई ना कोई बैठा होता है, वो कहते जी इधर कर दें. तो even a Koda Khatak, for example, I heading the railways at one time, a lot of people used to tell me, जी कोड़ा खटक में आप ट्रेन रुकवाएं. मैंने कहा जी बिल्कुल नहीं, जब बंदा चढ़ता नहीं है, there is no demand for it. हाँ, yes, Jangira is just 3-4 kilometers away. The trains would stop at Jangira. It has a connection to Sawabi. It has a lot of traffic was generated from Jangira. Well, you can go to Jangira and get a train, board a train and go to Karachi or go to Hyderabad or dur jaye. So that is how you sort of, and these small things, they make a difference, frankly. So this is about passenger trains. कोई questions हैं आपके? कोई चीज, and how then इस passenger trains में है कि how in the end is that train composition क्या है उसकी? How is that train formed? What kind of bogies are there? Let us say, as I said, from Peshawar to Rawalpindi to Lahore, ये 11 coaches हैं. What kind of coaches would you like? Would you like them to be air-conditioned sleepers? Would you like them to be air-conditioned business class? Would you like them to be air-conditioned lower class? Or would you like them to be economy class? Or would you like them to be a combination of all these 3-4? Or wo combination kaisa hoga? But then there is an issue of standardization. You can't have every train different. ये भी मसले होते हैं. Then coaches available नहीं. So it is a decision which has to be made. And how do you make these decisions? It is basically on the trend of the traffic, the demand of the people. तो ये एक passengers के बारे में मैंने बताया. So if you have any question, any wild question बताएं. कोई है question? Any question? क्यों? Are you there?
Yes, sir.
You have any कोई question पूछे यार, कुछ तो करे ना. It should be a two-way traffic. ऐसे तो नहीं कि बस मैं बोलता जाऊं, मैं तो मुंह सूख जाता है.
सर इसमें तो कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है, जनरल है कि मतलब हम रेलवे को किस तरह
जनरल पूछ लें.
मतलब हम
आप पूछे ना कि ये क्या 11 कोचेस क्यों हैं, 18 कोचेस क्यों हैं, ऐसे क्यों? कुछ तो पूछो रे यार. चले नहीं है तो ठीक है. चलो नेक्स्ट फिर मैं जाता हूँ.
क्यों पीछे है सर? मतलब हमारा सिस्टम बड़ा वो पुराना सा है. हमारे बाद जो आजाद हुए मुल्क, उनका सिस्टम हमसे बड़ा बेटर है ट्रांसपोर्ट का या
वो
हर चीज का. सर
बिल्कुल वो आप सही कह रहे हो. देखो ये तो बहुत बड़ा सवाल है. ये तो जब आप पूरा कोर्स खत्म करेंगे ना, ये सवाल फिर आप कर सकते हो. बात ये है कि देखें, अभी जो हमने कोचेस इंपोर्ट किए ना चाइना से, अखबार में देखते हैं या ये सोशल मीडिया पे आजकल आ रहा है, या जो हमारे पास वैसे भी कोचेस जो हैं, फ्रेंकली दे आर एज गुड और एज बैड एज सम कोचेस इन द वर्ल्ड. फ्रेंकली आप ये जो हमारी सर्विसेज हैं पार्लर कार की या स्लीपर्स की, दे आर रियली वेरी गुड. हर फैसिलिटी उसमें है. बट द थिंग इज द ओवरऑल रिजल्ट हमारा ठीक नहीं है. वजह यह है कि देखें, आप अगर BMW या मर्सिडीज गाड़ी लेंगे और उसके अपने गांव में रखेंगे, और नीचे रोड सारी कच्ची होगी तो आप तो नहीं चला सकते उसको। रख तो लिया आपने, लोग आएंगे बड़े खुश होंगे, और जी मर्सिडीज ले लिए। आपने मोबाइल फोन लिया, टॉप ऑफ द लाइन ले लिया, कोई आईफोन का या सैमसंग का जो आजकल दुनिया में बेस्ट है, और आपके गांव में कनेक्टिविटी नहीं है, वाईफाई नहीं आता, वहां आपका लाइंस ठीक नहीं है या ऑप्टिक फाइबर नहीं लगा हुआ, तो उसका फायदा क्या हुआ? तो हमारा समहाउ इस किस्म की चीजें हैं। हमारी जो पैसेंजर कोचेज और ये फ्रेंकली दे आर वेरी गुड, दे आर एज गुड एज एनी इन द वर्ल्ड, ये जो अच्छी, बट नीचे जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है दैट नीड्स टू बी, a lot of money needs to be spent on that, ताकि इन कोचेस का हम फिर एंड फायदा लें। जहाँ पे जैसे मैंने बात की, स्पीड ठीक होनी चाहिए, फिर ट्रांजिट टाइम कम करें, एंड यू सी हाउ द डिमांड, और देन वी आर अ कंट्री ऑफ 220 मिलियन पीपल, डिमांड बहुत है हर चीज की। As I said, railways, I told you earlier, we are carrying just less than 4% of the total people that are moving. It is very unfortunate. At least 20%, 15-20% होना चाहिए। तो 15-20% के लिए आपकी स्पीड बेहतर होनी चाहिए, आपके पास ट्रेनें बहुत होनी चाहिए, आपके पास लाइन कैपेसिटी बहुत बड़ी होनी चाहिए। अब हमारी लाइन कैपेसिटी नहीं, ऊपर से फ्लड्स आ गए हैं, तो नेचुरली फिर हमारा वो नहीं है। द वर्ल्ड हैज गॉन वेरी फार अहेड, बहुत आगे निकल गए हैं, स्पेशली रेलवेज में, especially with these high-speed HSR in countries like France and Italy and Germany and England और जापान and ताइवान और कोरिया जाएं, चाइना को तो छोड़ ही दें, चाइना तो वो तो जादू कर गया, आई डोंट नो व्हाट दे हैव डन। तो दुनिया पर, अच्छा, द बेस्ट पार्ट इज वी आर जस्ट लिविंग इन द सेम वर्ल्ड, ये नहीं। एंड व्हेन द रेलवे स्टार्टेड इन दिस पार्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, इंडिया पाकिस्तान में, वी वर एज गुड एज यूरोप। 10-15 साल का फर्क था हमारा, इधर आ गई रेलवेज और वही रेलवेज थी और जो वहां पे थी, बट हम पीछे रह गए। वो बहुत लंबी कहानी है, उसमें बहुत सी चीजें आ जाती हैं। आई डोंट वांट टू ब्लेम इट ऑन द पॉलिटिशियंस, आई डोंट वांट टू ब्लेम इट ऑन एनीबॉडी, वो बहुत से मसले हैं, मसाइल, उसमें वी विल डिस्कस। लेकिन अनफॉर्चुनेट ये है कि वी हैव बीन लेफ्ट बिहाइंड, स्पेशली वेयर रेलवेज आर कंसर्न्ड। अब मोटरवेज हैं हमारी, फ्रेंकली दार मोटरवेज आर एज गुड एज एनी मोटरवे इन एनी कंट्री। 120 स्पीड लिमिट उधर भी है, 120 इधर भी है। गाड़ियां तकरीबन हमारी भी ऐसी हैं, बसें एज गुड और बेटर, इफ नॉट बेटर, तो हम बराबर हैं। तो ये चीजें हैं, लेकिन बस रेलवेज में हम पीछे रह गए। एंड नाउ दिस, सिंस इट इज इन द गवर्नमेंट, इट्स अ गवर्नमेंट सेक्टर, तो यू कैन ब्लेम द गवर्नमेंट फॉर इट।
सर
क्यों नहीं आ रहा?
चाहिए तो ये था कि सर कि हमारा डिमांड ज्यादा हो जाए, मतलब वक्त वक्त के साथ और भी कम होता जा रहा है, मतलब एनकरेज नहीं हो रहे लोग, इसका क्या सर वजह हो सकती है?
नहीं, अब आई टेल यू, डिमांड उधर है, द डिमांड फॉर पैसेंजर ट्रैफिक, डिमांड फॉर फ्रेट ट्रैफिक, डिमांड फॉर रेलवेज इज स्टिल देयर। एंड लेट मी टेल यू, द इंडिपेंडेंट जो ट्रैफिक सर्विस है, इंडिपेंडेंट फोरकास्टिंग जो हुई है, बाय इंडिपेंडेंट आई मीन द एशियन डेवलपमेंट बैंक ले लें, जायका ले लें, जापान का ले लें, जो उनकी कंपनी है, ये है ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जो इंडिपेंडेंट स्टडीज कराती है, चाइना की स्टडीज कह रही हैं, वर्ल्ड बैंक कहता है कि द ट्रैफिक इज देयर, उसमें यू शुड रेस्ट अश्योर दैट द ट्रैफिक इज देयर, and what we are carrying, we should be carrying at least 6, 7, 8 times more, so that the demand is still there. लेकिन बात यह है कि how do you sort of meet that demand with 110 kilometers per hour train, and that too inefficient, frankly। 110 तो हमारी डिजाइन स्पीड है ना, वो बाद में फिर इंजीनियरिंग रिस्ट्रिक्शंस हैं, पुल खराब है जी, सिग्नलिंग सिस्टम खराब हो गया है, पंक्चुअलिटी मेंटेन नहीं हो रही होती, ये चीजें हैं, ये मसले होते हैं। डिमांड इज देयर, ये कोई मसला नहीं है हमारा। अच्छा, अब मैं आ रहा हूं फ्रेट सर्विसेज के ऊपर। अब फ्रेट सर्विसेज, जैसे आई टोल्ड यू, रेलवेज इज टू, वन इज पैसेंजर सर्विसेज, वन इज फ्रेट सर्विसेज। फ्रेट को गुड्स भी कहते हैं, और नाउ इन गुड्स अगेन, फ्रेट सर्विसेज, कौन कौन सी चीजें हैं जो आपको ज़हन में रखनी चाहिए। एंड बाय द वे, मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि कैसे होना चाहिए, मैं सिर्फ आपको पैरामीटर्स दे रहा हूं, जो फ्लैग कर रहा हूं जो आपको, I'm reminding you that these are things that you have to, when you talk of a freight train, these are things that you have to keep in view. What is that? The main thing is the load of the train. How much tonnage would you like to carry? What is your capacity of carrying? What weight can you carry? आपका क्या पोटेंशियल है? आपके पास लोकोमोटिव्स किस किस्म के हैं? अब लोड, सिर्फ लोड बात करना आसान काम. अब लोड के पीछे जो कहानी है, as I keep saying that there you have to study as engineers, you have to see कि लोड तो कह दिए इसने. Now look, we're talking of loads. Now what if you tell me कि जी कितना लोड होना चाहिए, कितना पुल करना चाहिए, लोग ट्रेन का लोड कितना फ्रेट वैगन फ्रेट ट्रेन का होना चाहिए, that depends on a number of parameters जो मैंने पहले बताया. One is your hauling power, which is the locomotive. Locomotives you can have 2, you can have 3, you can have 11, you can have 10. And outside, and especially in the US, they have 10 to 11 locomotives at times. And they're pulling maybe something like 12, 14, 15,000 tons. In some places where they're dedicated lines, they even run trains for 20,000 tons. So हमारा जो Pakistan Railways का limit है, that is then 2,400 tons payload, सामान. Total जो हम ले जा सकते हैं, that is something 3,200 tons, which includes the tear. Or load में, when you look at the load, then you have to also, you just can't say, okay, let us take a train of 4,000 tons. You have 2 locomotives. Okay, but carrying 4,000 tons, but that you can't do again. Why? Because the capacity, looping capacity of railway stations cannot sort of, it is not made that way. It is very dangerous to carry these long trains on stations where the looping capacity is limited. तो हमारी looping capacity बहुत से स्टेशनों के ऊपर, जो majority stations है, it is limited to about 35 8-wheelers. उससे ज्यादा नहीं जा सकते, because then वो आपस में एक्सीडेंट होने का खतरा है, and it is a safety hazard. So बहुत सी, so when you talk of load, जो मैं सिर्फ बता रहा हूँ कि it becomes then a complex kind of thing कि जी इसमें इतने parameters हैं, line capacity का आ गया, axle load का आ गया, hauling power का आ गया, and your looping capacity आ गई, ये सारी चीजें आ गई. Then when you increase the load, then you have to reduce the speed also. But then, of course, as I said, there is a demand for reducing transit times. And the entire world says, okay, जल्दी करें यार, जल्दी पहुंचाएं. So then वो आपको एक लिमिट करना पड़ता है कि क्या है. Then it of course also depends on commodities क्या हैं. तो maybe you coal को ले जाना है तो कौन सा जल्दी आपको, ठीक है, बाद में चली जाएगी, लेट थोड़ा चली जाएगी, अब लंबी ट्रेन बना लें. Then on freight services also the speed is an issue. The people want speed, people want reduction in transit times, but then of course there's a limit when you talk of trains, because in passenger and freight both, when you talk of railways, when you talk of Pakistan Railways, you're carrying bulk, so there's a limit to the speed. On ML1, the design speed for freight wagons was, freight trains was 120 kilometers per hour. And we were targeting 120 for empty wagons and 100 kilometers per hour for loaded freight trains. Now, believe me, this is a very, very good sort of a parameter, very good speed, and as good as any in the world. Yehi kafi hai. I think it's more than enough for the next 20 to 30, 40 years. Yehi chalega. आपका जो when you compare it to trucking, उसका कोई comparison नहीं है, especially when you're carrying bulk. Then आपको freight wagons में इसी तरह आपको passenger में भी कि locomotives कौन से इस्तेमाल करेंगे. You can't, there are certain locomotives which are just meant, the gear ratio is such that they have to carry freight trains. They have to go on freight trains. They can't be put on passenger trains. हमारा क्या होता है? These latest locomotives that we have, the General Electric, They specifically were purchased for movement of freight, and especially movement of bulk coal, साइवल प्लांट के लिए और बाकी प्लांट्स के लिए कि कोल ट्रेन्स लेके जाएंगी. बट अगेन वो चूंकि हमारी प्रायोरिटीज डिफरेंट है, वो उसी गियर रेशो, फ्रेट वाली गियर रेशो के साथ हम उससे पैसेंजर ट्रेन चला रहे हैं. तो दीज आर थिंग्स दैट जो आहिस्ता आहिस्ता इफेक्ट करती हैं आपको. देन वैगन्स, freight, when you talk of freight services, you have to talk of wagons. You have to talk of bogies. कि किस किस्म की बोगी आपको चाहिए. As in the passenger services, you have to look at the class of people who are traveling. What kind of service do they want here also? Then the commodity determines what kind of wagons are required. If you have a sort of a demand for moving oil, you need tank wagons. And the best part is in railways ये होता है कि when you have tank wagons, tomorrow if the oil traffic is not there, you can't just put wheat into it, or you can't put fertilizer into it, or you can't put some general cargo into a tank wagon. नहीं होता. You can't unload it, you can't fill it up then. So every wagon, every commodity has a specific wagon designed होता है. For carrying coal from Karachi to Saiwal power plant, we have these hopper wagons. Hopper wagons are open on the top, and they have these chutes down. With lever के साथ, you just pull the chute, and the entire wagon is unloaded in 10 to 15, 5 to 10 minutes, not more than that. But that is for coal. Now that kind of coal wagon again cannot be used for different things. Yes, it can be used for 1 or 2 or 3 other commodities, maybe be used for ballast, carrying ballast or stones or something like that. But then you can't, carry general cargo in it. So then these wagons, the commodity determines the wagons. For tank wagons, you have bogie wagons, you have open wagons, you have short-bodied short-sided open wagons, you have container carrying wagons, you have military equipment carrying wagons, which are at times you have a higher height thing, military vehicle moving, uske liye fir well shaped aa jati. So different kinds of wagons. Then you have to, when you're planning a railways, when you are operating in railways, you can't have more wagons. एक maximum, एक optimum level पे आपने एक चीज को maintain करना होगा. You have, for example, you purchase a sort of tank wagons, and tomorrow there's no oil. What do you do with them? You have to cut up the entire wagon, throw the tank wagon out, and the same, then that bogie can be used, of course, but it costs a lot of money. तो ये चीजें आपको फिर freight में देखनी पड़ती. And as I said, every commodity determines what kind of wagons are required. Now in freight, not only the wagon is determined by the commodity, the terminal facilities that you provide for filling, for loading of that train, and for unloading and decanting of that train, वो पूरी facilities develop करनी पड़ती हैं according to that commodity. So that is another angle which you look at freight trains. For passenger, ऐसे नहीं होता फिर. The same platform is used for any kind of passenger train. But in freight, no, it can't be. The oil facility will be different. The general cargo will be different. The freight, fertilizer wagons will be different. Wagons for wheat loading will be different. For ports के ऊपर जाके, when you have a look there, it is all a complicated business. Then, as I said, as in passengers, we talk of passenger kilometers. How many passenger kilometers has a railway done? How many passengers have traveled how many kilometers on that railway? So then that is an indicator of how well the railways is being run and how well the assets are being utilized. So on the freight side, we have ton kilometers. Basic unit railways ka transportation ka, whether it is road, whether it is shipping, whether it is railways, whether it is airlines, ton kilometer, passenger kilometer. What is a ton kilometer? A ton kilometer is a ton of cargo traveling for 1 kilometer. And we've had them from the office management group. So that is an unfortunate part. But the main unfortunate part is when they don't even understand what is a transportation system or what the railways is. There was one secretary, I don't want to name him, and long time back, he said, what is this ton kilometer and what is this passenger kilometer? So now imagine heading an organization and being a federal secretary with about 100,000 people working for you, where about 300 trains are running every day, and you don't know what a ton kilometer is and you don't know what a passenger kilometer is. So ye unfortunate parts hoti hain. So I'm just trying to sort of press that this is the basic unit. आपको पता होना चाहिए. ऐसा ना हो कल आप कहीं सेक्रेटरी या चेयरमैन रेलवे बने और कहेंगे जी टन किलोमीटर क्या होता है, पैसेंजर किलोमीटर. So these are basic units or indicators of judging any railways in the world. You can't ask a person कि कितने locomotives हैं आपके पास. That is okay. But then what those locomotives are doing, then it comes from, वो determine करते हैं कि कितने टन किलोमीटर गया और कितने पैसेंजर किलोमीटर इन्होंने अचीव की. Then to ये freight or passenger services, or this is what railways is, bus. And now this you apply to airlines. कि airlines पे क्या है, उनके passenger services क्या है, उनके freight services क्या है. You apply to the shipping, उनके passenger services क्या है, what are their freight services. Of course, we don't have passengers here, but in the outside world, passenger liners are still running, and they're used for tourist as tourist liners. Yeah, with this Qatar World Cup, they I think had 2 or 3 these shipping liners, passenger liners. They were they were in the harbor, they were anchored in the port somewhere, and they were used as hotels by the Qatar government. So ये passenger का काम है. Then, as I said, whatever you do, whatever investment you do on the infrastructure, on the rolling stock, are your trains financially viable? Is that train unit that you want to run between 2 destinations? And mein kya tha? And the thing is, you have to look at that one unit of train. One unit running between 2 destinations with a certain load, with a certain composition, whether it is a passenger train or a freight train or whatever. Usko then you determine, is this giving you a return on the investment? Whatever money you have spent on the locomotives, on the coaches, on the freight wagons, on the infrastructure, on the bridges, on the signaling system, is this giving you a financially viable return? And is that train financially viable unit hai ki nahi? That means if it is not, that means there's something wrong जो आपने plan किया. या उसके length में खराबी है, या उसकी class में खराबी है, या उसके speed में खराबी है, या locomotive problems हैं, या freight wagon, whatever, जो भी है. So it has to be financially viable. Then only आपकी train operations financially viable, unless they become financially viable, only then it looks good, frankly. हमारा पाकिस्तान रेलवेज में ये है कि when you look at the overall picture, how passenger trains and how freight trains are run, and how that asset is utilized, then in the end of the year, when you find a deficit of 45 to 50 billion rupees, which is thrown up by the operations of these trains, bad operation of these trains, misuse of assets, available assets, then everyone says that no, this is not good. This is not supposed to be there. Why should trains be financially non-viable? They should be throwing up some kind of a at least meeting their costs, and meeting the revenue should be such that they meet the expenditures. And 50 billion per year, 45 to 50 billion per year, ये रेलवे थ्रो अप कर रही है, इसी तरह PIA 40 billion थ्रो अप कर रही है. And you know, then what happens is इसी से मुल्क नीचे चले जाते, and they don't have the capacity to pay. Somebody has to pay for it. How do you do it? That again is a big story, long story. वो जब when we go through the course, I think वो clear होगा कि कैसे. But whatever I have said so far on this railway economics, the consolation is in Pakistan that the traffic is there. The traffic is there. It wants to go by train. It wants to be carried. The railways has this opportunity of making money on using that asset. वो क्या है asset क्या है? Again, infrastructure. Your rolling stock, locomotives or wagons of passenger coaches, and your human resource. Make good use of it, and your trains will become financially viable. ये मैंने question mark किया. You have to determine whether that unit of a train is financially viable or not. Is your Tezgam, which runs every morning at 8 o'clock from Rawalpindi to Karachi and back, is it a financially viable unit? वो वापस जब आता है, is it giving you a return on investment? Is it giving you a return on the operational costs? कि नहीं, ये देखना होता है. लेकिन unfortunately रेलवे का सिस्टम ऐसा बना हुआ है कि वो इसको नहीं देखते, वो इसको साल के बाद देखते हैं, उस वक्त नुकसान हो चुका होता है. तो ये मेरा, I don't know, I have always been propagating that we should be looking at it on a daily basis, on a monthly basis. कि जी, what is your train returning to you? And वो उसमें हम आगे course है which is the transport economics and financial viability of train operations, and that is applicable to everyone. वो भी एक different course है. It is a good course, and we are lucky that Pak Austria and our Center of Excellence in Transportation and Railway Engineering has already trained more than 200 railway officers in this. 1 week का course भी कराया हमने, उसमें short crash course. But then we have a 3-month course, full semester course. वो आगे आएगा sort of आवाज आ रही है? हेलो.
यस सर, आ रही है. आ रही है सर.
आवाज आ रही है?
यस सर.
हेलो.
यस सर, आ रही है.
आ रही है और स्क्रीन भी नजर आ रहा है?
यस सर, स्क्रीन भी नजर आ रहा है, क्लियर है सर.
अच्छा, क्योंकि मेरे पास आया कि समथिंग वेंट रॉन्ग. अच्छा चलो, खैर ये हो गया. देन अभी आप when we are talking of railways and we are talking of economics of railways, my view is that complete decision making of whether you want to run 1 train or 10 trains or 100 trains or 200 trains or 1,000 trains, the decision making should be purely on commercial basis. No political interference. Okay, if you want to run some trains which are strategically important, somebody has to pay for it. If you want to connect to some province which doesn't have any road connectivity, it doesn't have any communication, जो gap है, वो somebody should pay for it. If your train operations are such that, okay, you lose in 1 train, you earn money in the other trains, or you lose money on the passenger trains and you sort of earn revenue in the freight sector, उनको plus minus करके, if in the end you are plus in the plus, then it also doesn't matter, frankly. इसको in economic terms these are known as cross subsidies. Now cross subsidies ये है कि for example the passenger sector we are running trains because of requirement of a certain area, because that area has to be connected. For example क्वेटा जाना है या तफ्तान ट्रेन जानी और for that matter आपने खोखरा पार लेके जानी है गाड़ी और किसी ब्रांच लाइन को जरूरी चलाना है because there is no road connectivity and the government says okay you run it. So this then in such cases where the passenger sector cannot give you a return, financial return, then if you have a good operating freight railways where there is a return on investment or the traffic is there, people are willing to pay और उसको जो rates आपके हैं उसके ऊपर लोग जा रहे हैं, trains are going full, कोयला जा रहा है, fertilizer जा रहा है, containers जा रहे हैं, and you're making money in the freight. Then from the freight sector, you are sort of subsidizing the passenger sector. That is also okay. The World Bank, the Asian Development Bank say no, it is not okay. Every unit should be self-sustaining. If not self-sustaining, somebody should initially say, okay, this financial viability gap, which I talked about, the difference between the revenues and the difference between the expenditures. Somebody is going to pay for it. So then it's okay. For example, if there is a strategic line which has to be opened and kept open for strategic reasons for one day because of defense reasons, then of course we pay it as a defense sort of a expenditure. But then for a commercial enterprise, ये बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है. So the government has to take this decision. And these generally in economic terms are known as public service obligation. Public sector or public service obligation. Ye, when you run these trains to strategic areas, when you run these trains to areas which are not connected by road, the government wants you to run certain services. The difference between the expenditures and the revenues, that difference is then conveyed to the government that, okay, I was spending 100 rupees on this operation. I'm getting back 70 rupees, 30 somebody has to pay. The government then should be willing to pay to you as public sector obligation. Okay, since we want these trains to run at a loss, but that loss is not sort of economic loss. It is not a social loss. It is not a strategic loss. These lines are essentially required. Then they pay you that amount. It's okay, you keep running them. Doesn't matter. But then you need to know at least how much you're losing on that train. वो हमारा in railway terms, why? Because we are a public sector federal government department है. वो कोई पूछता नहीं है कि क्या खर्चा आ गया. Individual lines पे नहीं पूछते हम. तो गवर्नमेंट को बिल बड़ा मुश्किल हो जाता है फिर देना. At one time, ये public sector obligation, public service obligation हमें मिलती रही. हम बिल करते थे गवर्नमेंट को. But naturally, the government also is always short of funds, so they said no, we cannot pay all this. Close them down. But when you start closing down, you can't disconnect some areas. Okay, essentially the connectivity देनी है आपने. They're also part of this country. तो अब present position क्या है कि ये now I am talking of railway economics. बात उधर ही हो रही है. I'm not looking at railways from the operation point of view. I'm not looking at it from the safety point of view. I'm not looking at it from sort of a mechanical engineering or civil engineering point of view. ये सिर्फ हो रही है economics में बात. So what happens is that when these assets, whatever the railway has, these 450, 60, जो मैंने पहले, whatever I told you, 450, 60 odd locomotives, some of which are not functioning, some of them are half a locomotive, some of them are 3/4 of a locomotive. Then the assets that are used, infrastructure and all the railways. In the end, when we operate trains, this was up of debt. Cost is rising. Why is it rising? because the being federal government department, the rise in inflation, the rise in pay scales, the raise given by the government from time to time, the cost of food, the cost of facilities, electricity, water, whatever, everything is going high. So in terms rise because will keep when further I will show that I personally feel that 45 to 50 billion per annum to current hai. I personally feel within next 10-15 years this will go up to 150-60 billion rupees. Who's going to pay for it? और फिर accumulated जो है every year 45, 50, 45, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 ऐसे चलता जाए. You can imagine within 10-15 years thousands of billions of rupees burden have been thrown by running this railways in the condition that it is. And I personally feel that the only way out is to upgrade ML1, take a big jump. The traffic is there. The ML1, once it is upgraded, the volumes will be there. The revenues will be there. Everything, the forecasts are very good on the revenue side. On the capacity side, aapke paas hogi, the traffic is there. The volumes of traffic will be there. You will be able to fill this gap, not only fill this gap, but then you will be able to earn a lot of money and a lot of revenue to not only repay your loans that you will get from maybe from China under CPEC, but then you will have a lot of money to have which you can spend for other development works. And this is the only way to go ahead. Otherwise, then we are stuck in this. So this is the position. Now this 45 to 50 billion deficit per annum is reflective of the way the railway is run. It is reflective of the way your assets are being used or misused. And it is reflective of the way it should not be used. And we need to do something about it. And that's something then, of course, during the course of this lecture, we're going to see where the issues are, where things need to be tightened. From this figure, when you look at this figure alone, you will see that either the whole system has come down or there is a misuse of the assets. I personally feel you misuse it, where you need to put your assets where the money is, and that is in the freight sector. Wo freight sector deprived hai. So this is different ways of looking at it. So then historically, the railways has always been demanding, since it is a federal government department, from the PSDP public sector development funds, we have been demanding a lot of money to upgrade our infrastructure, to sort of renew our rolling stock, locomotives, coaches. But whatever the railway demands, that not even half of it is given. And even if it is given at the wrong time. And in the end, they say, okay, you did not use this money because naturally at times it comes at the wrong time. So the development budget somehow has always been reduced. And even today, that they're frankly very difficult to get the development budget. At one time in 2018, I remember 2017-18, your development budget was about 1 trillion rupees. Ajkal, I think it has shrunk to 650 billion rupees. So with the growing economy, with the growing population, with growing, your development budget should be growing, not reducing. But then we have these economic issues all over. So uska ye effect hai. Development budget railway ka reduce ho raha hai. इसमें of course, इसमें now again you have to look कि जी कौन बंदे हैं at the helm of affairs. What are the government's priorities? आपका मिनिस्टर कौन है, तकड़ा है, नहीं तकड़ा, ले सकता है पैसे, ले नहीं सकता, ये होती हैं फिर. And then what is the condition of the government today? Government का जो budget है वो तो बहुत सख्त फंसे हुए, frankly. वो कहते हैं just reduce your development expenditures ताकि काम चलता रहे. Then what has happened is that the normal operations में जो expenditure on maintenance of track, maintenance of locomotives, maintenance of coaches or wagons, और मेंटेनेंस ऑफ आपकी जो फैसिलिटीज हैं, मेंटेनेंस फैसिलिटीज, ट्रैक मशीन्स हैं, बाकी चीजें हैं, वर्कशॉप्स वगैरह हैं. Frankly, the amount that is required has never been there. And once I did a study on this, if I'm not wrong, the expenditure on track is always short of 1 or 2 billion rupees per year. Similarly, expenditures on locomotives, जो maintenance करनी होती है, जो normal, which the original manufacturer tells you to do, that is never there. Again, a shortage of 2 to 3 billion rupees. Sorry, or maybe 1.5 to 2 billion rupees. Similarly, coaches, wagons, maybe 500 million rupees are required, 600 million. ये नहीं होता. The government doesn't give it to you. It is not available. What happens is it not only deteriorates the existing infrastructure, जो आपकी normal maintenance है, where you have to keep the track at 110 kilometers, वो भी नहीं होता. So what happens is that there's some problem in the bridge, there's some problem in the track, then the speeds have to be reduced, engineering restrictions आ जाती हैं, it's a safety hazard, और ये चीजें हो जाती हैं. फिर ऊपर से if you have floods, of course, जिस तरह we had them this year, then things go really bad. And then a lot of money is required for sort of bringing the track back to its designed sort of speed of 110. So ये बड़े मसले मसाइल. Attic Bridge, for example, the speed is restricted to 15 kilometers per hour. It should be at least 100 kilometers per hour. कोई restriction, but then money is required to remove these restrictions, and money is required to maintain the locomotives and the coaches. So when you look at overall, 4 to 5 billion rupees is not available to the railways to maintain these assets. And let me tell you, the railway has the capacity to maintain them. It has the professional know-how to maintain them. It has the infrastructure to maintain them, and it has the sort of human resource to maintain them. Trained log hain, tagde log hain. But if the money is not there, well, then you, of course, things are. Then what happens is, okay, we told you that 69 locomotive Chinese are rotting away in Karachi. They still have 10 years of productive life left, but because of lack of maintenance facilities, according to your manufacturer would do, now they're rotting parts in, and they don't have the money to sort of repair them. Very sort of unfortunate. Then when you look at our budget, you will be surprised. 70 to 75% of the budget is spent on pay and pensions. But this itself is reflective of a sick organization. When the entire budget is going into pay and pensions, what is left then for operations? What is left for taking up new projects? What is left for new initiatives? Nothing. 70% goes into this, rest goes into fuel. And a good organization, a functioning organization, a financially viable organization, not more than 10% should go into pay and pension. Not more than 10. 70% goes into this. And ever rising. Every year there's an increase. And I'm not saying that the increase should not be there. It should be there. And somebody has to pay for it. So ye hamara wo hai. And then train operations reduce hogi. Of course, number of trains have been reduced. Whether that is good or bad, that is another issue. But operations kafi reduced. At one time we were running 300 trains. A few years back. Today I think passenger trains go on freight ko mila ke not more than maybe 70, 80 trains. So being looking at the railway economics expenditures, आपको बड़ा जरूरी है. You look at this pie chart. This gives you a picture of how things have deteriorated or how things have changed, not for the better but for the worse. So ये this first pie chart. Can you see it by the way?
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, अब ये जो 1970s का पाई चार्ट है, 62% of the amount was spent on operating expenditures. Operating expenditures. Only 2.6% was spent on pay and allowances. 1970s की बात कर रहा हूँ. Only a small fraction, maybe 1% or less than 1% was spent on pensions. And about maybe 15 to 20% was operational fuel. Then electricity pay 1%, 2% utility charges, electricity or pani or ye or. This is 1970. Now come to the present position. Or present position तकरीबन यही है. Look at pay and pensions. का pie कितना बड़ा चढ़ गया है. Look at pensions. More than, as I said, half 50% see a pie. When you add the blue and the yellow part, ये 60-70% बन जाता है. सारा pie pension ले गया. And for operating and बाकी fuel वही है. Naturally trains are running, so fuel का वो consumption भी वही है. But reduce वही है. But fuel consumption amount is the same. So ये then look at operating costs, how they have shrunk. The red part from 62%, we have come down to 13% and even less today. ये maybe the chart is also a year or two old. ये सिर्फ दिखा रहा हूँ आपको. Now tell me, for example, the general manager of railways, the chief executive, with 13% for operating expenditure, वो क्या, what flexibility does a poor chap have? कुछ भी नहीं है उसके पास. Pay and pension, ये given है, he has to give it, ये federal government का काम है. So the entire amount of का आपका expenditure उधर जा रहा है. फिर बाकी fuel में जा रहा है और 13% रह गया, कुछ utilities में चले जाते हैं. So he is having a bad time. And in the 70s, when the railways was in the black, और पैसे कमा रही थी, उस वक्त he had a huge independence of playing around with 62% of the expenditures. उसके पास होते थे. So train operations किस तरह चलनी है, क्या करना, he would spend. If he wanted a terminal facility at some places, he had the money to spend. If he wanted maybe some addition of locomotives or freight wagons, he had the money. Now this same gentleman, just CEO, he doesn't have that kind of independence. So you can see the amount allocated for operating expenses has been drastically reduced over the years. Now this tells you the story of railways. कि ये हालात है. And this pay and pension will keep on increasing. This fuel will keep on increasing the way trends are. तो ये और भी shrink होगा. अब ये 2013-14 के financial सिर्फ दिखा रहा हूँ. It tells the story of non-viability as its present enterprise structure. वही चीज, cost of employees is 98% पे चली गई. Cost of pension और salary ये अब भी exactly ऐसी है जो 2013-14 में थी. वो जो पिछला पाई चार्ट था वो कुछ अच्छे टाइम का था. अब ये यहाँ पे कह रहा है कि 98% कॉस्ट एम्प्लॉइज की आ रही है. एंड ऑपरेटिंग कॉस्ट जो हैं वो आपके टोटल अर्निंग से ज्यादा हैं. फ्यूल के 19% है, इलेक्ट्रिसिटी के 4% है, रिपेयर मेंटेनेंस 6%, अदर्स 4%. So average annual loss is over the last 5 years is more than the revenue. जो लॉस है, टोटल रेवेन्यू जो आपका आ रहा है, वो जो लॉस बराबर करके पिछले 5 सालों का वो रेवेन्यू के बराबर हो गया. So what are we doing? क्यों हो रहा है? क्या कर रहे हैं? So you must have heard Mr. Ismail and sort of a talk with our ex-Prime Minister Mr. Hakan Abbasi Sahab. Staff College में एक talk थी. He was one speaker, I was another speaker. I remember, and we were the topic was the functioning of public sector enterprises, state-owned enterprises, SOEs कहते हैं इसको. तो उसमें railways, utility store, PIA, steel mill, agriculture के महकमे वगैरह. So इस पे analysis था, and I was there as a guest speaker. So I remember शायद Hakan Abbasi saying that if we sell the steel mill and the railways at ₹1 each, we will still be in a better position and in a bargaining in a profitable position. At least you will have ₹1 which will be your own. नुकसान तो नहीं है ना, 45 billion का नुकसान तो नहीं होगा. In a way, he was right. But then when you look at a public sector enterprise which is worth billions and billions and billions of rupees, उसमें बड़ा asset पड़ा हुआ. You don't treat public enterprises like that. It is not a private thing कि जी चलो दे दो यार, ₹1 में दे दो, खत्म कर दो. You can't. हम भी क्या खत्म कर सकते? Yes, steel mill खत्म हो सकती है, but not railways. So then I had to. My view was that you're right so far as the financial balance sheet is concerned. But when you look at what the railways is, how much asset has the government owns in this, how much money has been spent, and what kind of a service it should be providing. So we can use this asset in a better way and get our money out of it. ये भी एक तरीका है. उनकी बात भी सही है कि जी मिफ्ता साहब ने अभी a few months back in one of the press conferences, he said even if we sell it at ₹1, we will still be in the plus. Now present position में, as I said, कि railways का main चीज है traffic. कि what traffic you are carrying, what kind of traffic you are carrying, and how you are carrying it. Main चीज ये है, whether it is passenger traffic or freight traffic, and how and where are you carrying it, and where is the demand, and at what cost and what price you are carrying it. So ये है. So presently Pakistan Railways on the country level in the transport sector is carrying less than 4% of the total traffic volumes that are moving in Pakistan. ये statement जो less than 4% है, this is in the economic survey of Pakistan. कोई basic documents होती हैं, one of them is the economic survey of Pakistan. इसमें आप when you open it, ये है available है नेट पे, इसको देख लीजिएगा, इसका ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर देख लें, रेलवेज को देख लें, बाकी देख लें. So they say, but I frankly don't agree with this. कि this may be true for passenger traffic, but for railable traffic, railable हर जेल पे नहीं जा सकती. If you ask me, for example, in Hatar industrial estate, वहाँ पे I've been told कि 400-500 वो हैं industrial units हैं. Let me tell you, the entire Hatar industrial estate will not even have a half a train load of traffic for railways. Why? Consumer goods बना रहे हैं, कोई बल्ब बना रहा है, कोई प्यालियां बना रहा है, कोई चम्मच बना रहा है, कोई बना रहा है, कोई और चीज कंज्यूम इन लोग वहां पे रेल वाई किलोमीटर्स. So you talk of railable commodities. I think the railways in the freight sector must be contributing more than 10%. But अब इस less than 4% में करना क्या है हमने? Than 30-40% of the traffic. Than that, when road development, the government has spent. So now the rail has to tailor itself, modify itself to the existing future traffic. This part is the consolation is traffic is still there for whether it is. Determined is what kind of traffic you want to carry and what kind of traffic should the railways carry. On the passenger side, very easy. You just need to cater for the demand for long distance passenger traffic. Long distance means in railways, both on the passenger and freight side, maybe on the passenger you can say 200 kilometers. On the freight it is say 300 kilometers. So anyone going beyond 200 kilometers rail sort of facility will be utilized, provided that it is efficient and speedy and safe. तो ये है, आप जाएं तो आपको अभी भी टिकट नहीं मिले, लेकिन उसका यूटिलाइजेशन कैसी है, कैसे करना है, किस किस्म की ट्रेनें चलानी है, कितनी चलानी है, ये भी एक बहुत बड़ी चीज है. पॉलिटिकल लोग आते हैं, वो कहते हैं ट्रेन चलाए, अच्छा जी ट्रेन चलाए, तो पता चलता है जी फेल होगी, फिर 6 महीने के बाद कहते हैं जी नुकसान हो गया. दैट इज व्हाट इज गोइंग ऑन. सो Pakistan Railways is less than 4%. So there is a huge potential here, and the government of Pakistan has given a target to in the transport sector to the railways that this 4% should be increased. Railways share in the traffic movement and transportation in Pakistan should be more than 20%. And when should it be 20%? They say by 2025 to 2030, you have to reach 20% of the total volumes of traffic that are moving in Pakistan. Now, is this doable? Is this a policy statement of the government of Pakistan? Is this doable or not doable? Now, independent bodies think that this is doable. The railway thinks it is doable. How do you reach 20%? This is how you go ahead. Railways ne apna plan banaya hua hai. But then, of course, some investment needs to be done. And this one project, ML1 upgradation, which we are now again sort of reviving with CPAC, this is the only way where 20% target can be achieved. Simply by upgrading ML1, you will straight away achieve the target of 20%, which the government of Pakistan wants you to achieve within a very few years' time. Oh, thinking, what is that 20%? Then in the Pakistan Railways, you have to see traffic. Where is the traffic moving? When you look at Pakistan Railways, I showed you the maps, I showed you the entire infrastructure, ML1, ML2, ML3, branch lines, subsidiary lines of the moving one from Karachi to Hyderabad to Rodi to Khanpur to on to Faisalabad. We समझ लेंगे ML1 ही है. Then on to Rawalpindi, Islamabad and Peshawar. So 80% even today, and trend will keep on remain there. Why? Because most of your industrial areas, most population is on this ML1. So this 1800 kilometers out of the total 706 kilometers comprises ML1, and 80% of the even in I personally feel that 80% of the traffic will move on these lines. Of course, ML2, ML3 they also need to be upgraded, but the volumes will travel. Once ML1 is upgraded, of course, this 80% will go up to 90% if you don't touch your ML2 and ML3. Everything will move by ML1 then. Then loss-making passenger at the cost of revenue freight trains. ये एक dilemma हमारा रहा है. Number of passengers which then goes through a lot of operating deficit, और ये जो 45-50 billion का जो deficit दिखाया, mainly due to running of loss-making passenger trains. Freight sector overlook किया गया, उसकी priorities नहीं है. अब आके फिर से दोबारा वो कह रहे हैं यार जी freight sector पे आए, and this is where the money is, this is where your efficiencies come in, this is where the total package revenue generation will increase, and this is where how your deficits will decrease. Only way, because as I said, it's all about operating passenger and freight trains. and how you sort of manage those trains. What kind of commodities do you carry in the freight? Is the demand there? Yes, the demand is there. Or as I said, independent bodies कहती हैं कि yes, the freight is there. We are carrying about, maybe out of Karachi, we are moving 8 to 10 trains a day, freight ki. There's a demand for even 30 trains today, provided the railways can do it to line capacities. Shortage of resources हैं जो कि वो नहीं करते. Attitudes का भी मसले हैं. सरकार है. Then I hinted at this कि जी तमाम मसला जो है वो traffic mix का है. अब what is traffic? Traffic mix comprises of two things only. One is your passenger trains, one is your freight sector. The rolling stock, your infrastructure is there. Infrastructure is there, rolling stock is there. How you make use of it? If you divert your assets to the freight sector and reduce your passenger sector, and not reduce them, but you make demand for long distance travel, do away with the short distance trains, passenger trains, traffic mix could distort जो हुआ है, sort of divert your assets to the freight sector, 60-65% freight, 30% passengers, 5% others. Others may you lease your land out, you let your land out, you commercialize land around the railway stations. Let somebody come in, maybe Chinese come in, and they develop 5%. I think इसमें बहुत बड़ा potential है, but concentrate on the freight sector. तो traffic mix ने खराब किया हुआ है. Traffic distort हुआ है, traffic mix over time. In the 70s, 80s, when the railways was doing well, when we were throwing up a lot of revenues, when our balance sheet was in the black, not in the red, उस ज़माने में passenger freight traffic was given more priority. A lot of freight traffic was run. Even passenger trains were run at that time, but the dominant sector was the freight sector. So we made a lot of money. As soon as that distortion took place and the political people came in and they started running these passenger trains and for political reasons, and they started stopping trains for political reasons, and the punctualities were badly affected. More passenger trains came in, less of line capacity for freight trains. So aista distort ho tabai aa gayi. What needs to be done is कि इस distortion traffic mix को खत्म करें. Hit it 3-4 years, 5 years. अब देखें, if you concentrate on your freight traffic, best part is it is still there. Up your entire Afghanistan is dependent on railways, so बाकी तो छोड़ ही. Traffic है, हर चीज की traffic है. तो ये, as I said, non-commercial stoppages of mail express trains खत्म होने चाहिए. Up, you won't believe it. Once we had a good railway minister. This was in 96, I think. Caretaker government में Afzal Khan Lala of Swat, a great man, dignified personality, honorable man, good politician, understanding what a politician say. Yeah, he shouldn't be fiddling in the railways. He just knows the general sense. कि आम लोगों को how can you benefit the common man? Now that he knew. At that time, you won't believe it. The railway experts, they came up with sort of a plan, and in one go, 200 railway stoppages, train stoppages of mail express trains, of passenger trains were eliminated, which were completely given over time, over the years, on political basis. Stop करना है, नवाब शाह में stop करना है, जी बालपुर में stop करना है. Shalimar Express, one of the best trains, was ruined because of giving stoppages in different areas. It has to go through Multan. Why? Because some political personality is there. It has to stop in Nawab Shah because some political person is there. It has to stop in some other place, maybe Balpur, because some political person. Yes, then these things started off. So most of our mail express trains when it comes for the purpose that they were run, that purpose was defeated. So ऐसे चीजें. So at one time, then Afzal Khan Lala's government, caretaker government, we did away with 200 railway stoppages in one go. And let me tell you, there was no public reaction. Once, of course, you run for passengers. But as I said, these are long distance trains. A train which is going at 2 o'clock and cross there are no people there. Or if there are 1 or 2 passengers, this train is not meant for 1 or 2 passengers. So khair, this is how things were reviewed, or your non-commercial stoppages. Yes, if the revenue is there, you stop it. As I gave you an example of, say, for Akoda Khatak and Jangira, for example. Just next 3, 4, 5 kilometers, Jangira is a good commercial railway station where it caters for a big feeding area of entire Sawabi area and that Akoda Khatak and other areas. So why stop a train at Akoda Khatak and after 3 minutes you want to stop the train again at Jangira? So one stop is more than enough. And by just giving one stop, you are sort of wasting more than 10 to 12 minutes of a train. Then, as I said that it is a federal government department, Pakistan Railways department, our fare structures were too rigid. They would not respond to the market. They would not respond to the increase in oil prices. They would not respond to the increase in utilities, pension and pay scales. But fare structure is the same. My view is that you keep the tariff structure dynamic. It should be just according to what the market determines. And even if let the market determine your tariff, still there is a lot of traffic. So ये खैरात करना, sort of hitting poverty through reduction of railway tickets, price of railway, ऐसे नहीं होता. Then in the process, that poverty is 50 billion that the railways is throwing up. This could be used for poverty alleviation had you had a good commercial railway system. The tariff structure dynamic. Since it is a government department, it becomes difficult to raise fares or even reduce fares. At one time, I remember in between this Lala Musa Malikwal Sargoda section, we reduced the fares and the revenues were increased. Why? Because people started patronizing the trains. We became cheaper than the wagons. We became cheaper than the buses. Short distance, of course, not that short, but 100 kilometers, 120 kilometers, something like that. But still, we were more viable by reducing the fares. But then, because it is so rigid, you have to go through a lot of process, which is not that sort of automatic. It should be dynamic and market oriented. And same goes for the freight sector. It should be dynamic. It should keep changing with time. Now this consciousness has come in, and for example, the Saiwal coal we used to charge them 2 rupees per ton kilometer. That means about 2,000 rupees per ton from Karachi to Saiwal. Now, because that the tariff structure is dynamic, it has inbuilt the costs of utilities, cost of fuel, cost of all these things has been inbuilt into the freight agreement with the power plant. Now I've been told it has gone up to 3.9 or 4 rupees per kilometer. It should be that way, and they're willing to pay. If the things are going up, of course, somebody has to pay for it. Then I think I've talked enough. This I will take up. Now we will go into each sector separately and see what Pakistan Railways has done, what the sector means about, what it means, what is it all about, what are the different priorities, what are the different angles to a train. After, what happens is that a passenger just buys the ticket and he thinks he owns the railways. It is a very complex thing. So we are going to, through these lectures, we're going to see and we're going to go inside and see how these trains are sort of, what is the dynamics behind all this.